Greetings, listeners. Today is all about spiritual awakening, the meaning of awakening. I go into my own moments of awakening, but more importantly, I take what I've learned from my awakening experiences and try to share that in what is the meaning of awakening. Check it out and enjoy the episode.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical Podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci, here to remind you that you are a spiritual cosmic being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. Today's episode 84, is all about awakening, spiritual awakening, the meaning of awakening. Are you awakening? This is what was coming through today. I think it is a powerful episode. I do hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's jump right into it. Are you ready? Let's get awakened. Masters and angels, I request your presence, your guidance and support through this episode. Please help me to always know the truth, speak the truth, and be the truth. And please allow this episode to reach whoever needs to hear it with ease and grace and clarity. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. Spiritual awakening, or awakening in general, because I don't know if you can actually separate those two words. For me, I feel like all types of awakening are inherently spiritual. So we can talk about awakening, we can talk about spiritual awakening, but for me, they are connected. They're linked, and they can't really be broken apart. I want to talk about awakening today, and the first part of that, I'd like to share various moments of my own awakening, or moments in my life that I would consider to be awakening moments. And then in the second part, I'd like to share, based on my experience, what awakening means, at least to me. But I think you'll find that some of those things that I think are pretty universal. And that's what's wanting to come through right now. We are very much, whether we want to be or not, whether we believe it or not, whether we accept it or not, we are in a very incredible space of awakening right now on the planet. And so I'd like to share some of my awakening moments to see if they resonate with you, to see if you've had similar moments in your life, to see if you can relate to any of these, or maybe go back and say, oh wow, maybe that is a moment. This is a turning point. This is a level of understanding. This is a new moment, a new level, a new grade, a new lesson, where you are allowed to see more, you're allowed to understand more, you're allowed to become more aware of the whole, because it's made up of parts. Our whole lives, we see a certain amount, right? And then awakening is all about being allowed to see more. And I've discussed this before in previous episodes. I think I've said it's like being in a dark room and lighting a candle. And when the candle is lit, that's your awareness. That's most people's awareness. You can see what roughly is in the room if you walk towards that wall or that door. But you can't see the whole thing at once because your candle is too small. The light it's not bright enough. A lot of the room is still veiled in shadow and darkness. Full awakening, spiritual awakening, is like having all the lights in that room turned on so that you can see the entire room. But not only that, it's like having all the lights in the whole house, and you find that you weren't just in a room, you're in a mansion. with 500 rooms. And awakening is being able to see all of those rooms at the same time, simultaneously, aware of what is in each and every room at the exact same moment, whether you're in the room or not. And so in this lifetime on this planet, we spend so much of our time in one of those 500 rooms, holding a candle, moving about, trying to shine light on the different parts of the room so that we can see and understand more, but without being able to see the whole thing at one time. So that's what this episode is about. It's about moments where I felt like I've seen more than the dimly lit room by the light of a candle, and then what awakening has come to mean to me. And I hope that it helps you. I hope it guides you, because this is a very interesting moment that we're in. And I've been saying it episode after episode. I probably sound like a broken record now, but we're in it. And anyone who can't, I don't know that there's anyone on the planet who doesn't feel that right now on some level, especially in recent weeks. It has been turned up so loud, so visible, so obvious that we have to see it. I got off social media a few months ago. It doesn't matter. I don't watch the news. You can't avoid hearing what's going on right now in the world. And that's all for a reason. It's all for a purpose. We must break down to break through. We must break down to break through. The earliest moments that I would consider an awakening moment that I remember, I've already shared on the podcast, but I'll share it again now. I think I was around 5 to 7, sometime in there, and I was giving my mom a back massage because her back hurt, even as like a 6-year-old, whatever I was. And I could feel in my hands the pain where it was in her back. I felt that pain in my hands, and then I felt it in my back where it was in her back. And I realized that that was what we would call being empathic. I didn't know that word for probably 2 more decades, but that was a significant moment for me because I recognized something and I remembered it. And it's so long ago now that it has to have been, because I've known that memory my whole life, but it's so long ago now that it's almost like, really? But it was, because you know when you have an awakening moment. I remember feeling great peace and calm while I was in wilderness areas. I used to go canoeing a lot in the Boundary Waters and in the Quetico Provincial Park in Canada. And being up there was so peaceful, felt so connected, seeing all the stars. You can see so many stars up there. There's no reception, there's no cell phones, there's no motorboats, it's all canoes. It's all cooking your own food, catching your own food, sleeping on the ground, and just getting back to that baseline of being in the earth's rhythm. I didn't know it then, but those were awakening moments for me. Those were awakening moments because they reconnected me to not only the earth, but to my soul. And anytime you're reconnecting to the earth and reconnecting to the soul, you are awakening because you're remembering. For me, awakening is simultaneous and synonymous, both, to remembering. Awakening, remembering, awakening, remembering. When I was 21, I was studying abroad in Senegal, West Africa. And we were on a trip out in the very eastern edge of Senegal, right by Mali. And we had visited a village on top of a mountain, and that village had the largest baobab tree, so they said, in the country. Must have been hundreds of years old. It was incredible. I don't know why I don't have a picture of that day. I'm sure somebody does from that group. And so we were walking to go back down the mountain. And I had a moment where I looked out over the horizon, still at the top of the mountain before descending, and everything merged. I could feel how everything connected together. And it came out of nowhere, I thought. I wasn't on anything. Nothing had happened except for being by that huge, old, ancient baobab tree, which honestly, I did not even connect with having that spiritual experience until years later, that could have been part of it. But of course it was. But I looked out over the horizon and I felt and saw and knew at the same time how everything was connected, and how the sky was connected to the ground, and the ground was connected to the rocks, and the rocks were connected to the trees, and how I was connected to all of it. And I had no idea how to explain that. None. I didn't even know the language to call it a spiritual experience. But that was an awakening moment. It was an awakening moment because in those moments I remembered that we're all connected, and how real and true that is, and how everything is connected. It's not just people. It was being part of the earth, but also being part of the sky, and the sky is part of the universe, and the universe is part of the other planets. It was everything. And I remember so much wanting to make that moment last, to stretch it out as far as I could. And it still brings tears to my eyes to think about that. The next few days after that were really magical, but then it faded away. That feeling faded away, and I still, even now with all of my vocabulary and all my language, I still don't feel like I have the words to describe what that was like. And in my late 20s and early 30s, I had so many what I would call awakening experiences between, card readings and psychic readings and Akashic record readings and different healings and clearings that I was part of, different courses, learning healing touch. I've talked about that on my podcast, about how it felt like I was remembering how to do it. I mean, that is something. That's an extraordinary feeling. If you've ever done something and it felt like you were remembering how to do it, if you've had that experience, you know what I'm talking about. And I hadn't in this lifetime until then. It was an incredible thing. Information I was given through various readings or memories that I seem to have through doing various forms of healing, just natural ability to do X, Y, or Z. Those were all awakening moments because I was remembering, or because I was being given a bigger part of the picture, my picture. I'd say all of those awakening moments were related to me, and awakening to myself, right? Awakening to my soul, who I really was and am. And also meeting certain people. I'm sure many of you have had the experience of meeting somebody and instantly there was a connection. Instantly there was a knowing, a remembering, a feeling of being at home, a feeling that you'd known that person, a comfortability that you couldn't explain. I've met several of these people throughout my life. And some of them have faded out over the years because the moment that we were meant to connect happened and it's done now. And some of those have remained strong for the last 20 years, 13 years, 8 years since I met them. Very strong connections. And it's okay if they don't last longer than they're supposed to. But those moments too, meeting those people, having those connections, those are awakening moments, for me anyway. Because it gives you a glimpse of you're not here alone. You recognize these other beings and they recognize you on some level that you don't know and you can't explain. But it means something. And it helps you to remember in that moment, just maybe a little bit. Helps you to have that little awakening, that little understanding That understanding that you don't fully understand, that you can't fully explain, but on some level you know it. I've also had a handful of plant medicine experiences that I've talked about. And each of those experiences, I would consider awakening experiences, absolutely provided me with more information about myself and understanding myself, knowing myself, seeing more of the bigger picture outside of myself, seeing more of the bigger picture within this world, this collective, these humans, these earthlings, these folks that we have decided to incarnate with on this planet. Those were awakening experiences as well. Helped to remember. For example, my Iboga ceremony, which I've also talked about on this show at various times. I had always felt my whole life, I'd always had this knowing that, or feeling at least, we'll say feeling, that I was going to die when I was 31. Couldn't explain it, didn't know how, never understood it. And during my Iboga ceremony, I felt like I was dying. I literally felt like I was burning on a funeral pyre, and I literally let go because there was nothing that I could do. There was no hospital nearby. I thought it had gone wrong. I've said this before. I've shared this story a couple times. But the point is, I did die. There was a part of me that died while I was 31 during that Iboga ceremony. And right after I let go, I got this flood of information. All of these things were shown to me about my past, my whole life, things that I just didn't understand or didn't see fully. And they showed me, or it showed me, or I showed myself what all of that meant. And it all made perfect sense. Why this happened, why I met this person, why I always drew that in my notebooks, why I always believed in this, why I always felt myself to be this. All these things made sense to me in that moment. That was an awakening moment. And then there were moments amongst those or amongst readings where I was shown things about the outside world that I didn't quite understand. I wasn't even looking for. They weren't even questions that I had going into these experiences at all. They were just there. They showed up because I needed to know that information at that moment for whatever reason. That brings me to more recently. I would say starting in 2020 until this moment has been a huge awakening experience for me. Mostly about the world, mostly about what's going on this reality, on this planet, how this planet has worked these past thousands of years, the truth. Not what we see every day, because a lot of that is not the truth. That's the facade. It's like being in Disneyland, where it's a beautiful facade, but you open that door and it's just the back of the set. Doesn't actually go into the castle. You're going on the ride, it looks great, but then you see the exit sign, and once you go through there, it's a whole different picture. That's what the last 2 years have been like. A more collective understanding and awakening concerning the outside world, outside of myself. And I've still been discovering more about myself through that time, absolutely, as well. That is true. Understood a bit more about my personal relationship to this planet, my personal relationship, my soul's relationship with other planets and other realities. A little bit more about what I'm doing here, the job, the mission, the purpose, all of these things, all of these little moments of awakening, remembering, becoming more aware. And a big part of that these last 2 years has been a realization that many of the things that I took for granted, just took to be true, aren't. Basic things like They taught me this in school. Well, I trust that. It must be true. Basic things like they're telling me this on the news. That must be true. So that's a little snapshot. That's a little snapshot of awakening moments. You know, another piece of that that's happened over the last 2 years is being shown the other side of a story, the other side of a perspective. I used to be very polarized, I'd say, on one side of things, very strong in my beliefs, and convinced that those who didn't believe those things, didn't see it that way, were wrong. And over the last 2 years, I'm happy to say that I've reached a point where, by some grace of the universe, of source, of the angels, that I've been able to be given the perspective of those that I did not understand before. I didn't understand, didn't agree with, didn't believe. And by some grace, I've been able to be given that perspective so that I can not necessarily agree, but I can see why certain groups, certain people behave the way they do. I understand from their perspective what they believe in and why they are doing what they are doing and why they think it's good and why they think it's right. That is an awakening moment. To see someone else's perspective truly, it neutralizes you. I don't think being polarizing is in our best interest at this moment. So for myself, I'm grateful to have this experience of seeing another side, another perspective, another understanding. And it's very much shaken me out of the belief that I am or was right in all of my convictions and all of my beliefs, which is a very good thing for me because I can be very strong-minded. It was a big thing for me. And if you've had this experience at all, your whole life doesn't have to be the last 2 years. That, for me, is an awakening moment. I would consider that awakening or a spiritual awakening. Becoming more aware, seeing things from not just two sides, but many sides, like a crystal has many facets. You can be looking at one facet of a crystal, but it doesn't mean that that's the only facet it has. It might have 5, 6, 10 facets. And they're all there. They're all true because they're there. You can't say, oh no, that facet's not there. It's there. So I'm grateful to have been given that grace to see other perspectives, to understand where others are coming from. It's greatly expanded my understanding, my awareness of this current situation we are in on Earth, which, by the way, we all signed up for. We're all here for a reason. We're all doing exactly, hopefully, what we need to be doing. And yes, there's a lot of chaos right now, and it may continue for a time, but believe it or not, as in my last episode, I stated very emphatically, thanks to the guidance, we are miraculously on target. May not look, feel, smell, see, hear, sound like that at all, but we are miraculously on target still. And with that, I wanted to move into the meaning of awakening, or spiritual awakening for me. Some ideas that came through that I wanted to share. Awakening is recognizing something you didn't quite see or remember before. Awakening is looking around and seeing that there is more than you previously saw, and that you are connected to it. Awakening is discovering that you are actually in a 10-story building when you thought there was only 2 stories. Awakening is seeing another perspective, another side of the story that you hadn't seen before. Awakening is allowing more space in your mind, your heart, and your being for greater truths. Awakening is being in one with all. Spiritual awakening is realizing that you are in chapter 20 of a 40-chapter book when you had thought that you reached the epilogue. It's remembering that you have a job to do and a purpose for being on this planet at this time. It's remembering that you are a spiritual cosmic being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. Awakening is remembering your past lifetimes, your previous journeys and lessons and adventures. It's discovering that you're actually in a 20-story building when you thought it was 10. It keeps going on from there. It keeps going. It's remembering other places and planets, dimensions, existences beyond the physical, other bodies, other realities, other worlds. Awakening is coming to terms with having been lied to about most things on this planet. Awakening is realizing that you're in book 2 of an 8-part epic. Awakening is remembering and knowing why you are here. It's seeing the illusion start to collapse all around you as we're doing right now. It's breaking down to break through. Awakening is coming out of a cryo freeze, a deep slumber. It's Rip Van Winkle waking up. Awakening is experiencing every lie in your life disintegrate until all you have left is truth. Awakening is to know without knowing. It's to see without seeing. Awakening is learning that you are in 3rd grade when you thought that you were in 10th. And it's also learning that you're in graduate school when you thought that you were in middle school. It goes both ways. Awakening is realizing that you create your own reality. It's manifesting everything you desire for the benefit of humanity. Awakening is understanding that every single experience happens for you and not to you. Awakening is taking the blinders off. It's total awareness of all matter and all matters. Awakening is seeing that a square peg can fit into a round hole. It's realizing that everything you thought was black is actually white. Everything you thought was true is actually false. Everything you thought was flat is actually round. Everything you thought was woke is actually asleep. Everything you thought was ignorant is actually in the know. Everything you thought was up is actually down. And all iterations of that, inside, outside, backwards, forwards. When your whole world and sense of self is turned upside down, that's awakening. When you realize it's okay, because all of it's helping you to remember, that's awakening. Awakening is remembering why you came here. It's remembering your mission, your role. It's seeing where you've been in this lifetime and why you've been there and why you did those things. It's understanding what you've already done to help, what you've already done as part of your mission. It's knowing what you need to do next. Awakening is remembering your people, your team, your guides, your angels. Awakening is remembering the divine, the universe, the all that is, the source. Awakening is remembering that you're not alone. You're not doing this alone, and that we're all doing this together. Awakening is remembering that you chose to do this, that you chose to be here, and remembering that all things in life are perfect. So, are you awakening? I'll leave it there for today. Bless creation. Hey there, listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that was instructive for you. The bonus content for today is a bonus for me. Join Patreon at patreon.com/letsgetmeta and tell me your awakening story. Write it to me. I want to share it on the podcast. I want to hear what moments helped to wake you up. I want to hear your experiences, and I want to share those with all of our listeners. So join me and share your story. That's my little bonus. There can be one of those a year. Come on. It's all good. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much again for listening. Stay positive. stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. If you are ready to raise your vibration, you might enjoy our free Let's Get Meta Master Clearing. To receive the Master Clearing or to learn more about the podcast, visit letsgetmeta.com. The show is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. You can access more awakening content, join our membership community, or become one of our angel donors by visiting upandawaken.com. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.